As Russia's invasion into Ukraine is about to enter its second year, it's clear that there's no end in sight for this war, which means that there's no end in sight to military weaponry and defense funding being sent over to Ukraine. Now, while I want to be clear, and I think I've been on the record multiple times saying, I was supportive of supporting Ukraine in defending itself against Russia, it seems like this has turned into a little bit of a blank check situation, and I don't know what the right answer is. I want to be clear about that as well. But they're about to approve another $2 billion, and they've already allocated $45 billion in military funding for Ukraine. Now, the United States has already, again, spent $45 billion. The Biden administration is expected to announce a roughly $2 billion military assistance package for Ukraine on Wednesday, meaning today. One that includes Patriot missile systems and misleadingly named precision bomb kits. Now, Patriot missile systems also are a bit of an issue because while it's supposed to bolster Ukraine's defense capability by shooting down missiles from Russia, the reality is they fail more often than they succeed in doing that, okay? So let me give you some details on that. A senior Biden administration official called the planned shipment of long-flawed Patriot missile systems, which Russia has deemed a provocation, a critical step to defend the Ukrainian people against Russia's barbaric attacks on Ukraine's critical infrastructure. But according to Foreign Policy magazine, it might not help them defend themselves much, but we are gonna be spending billions of dollars on them, okay? So again, this is Foreign Policy magazine. We're not talking about Jacobin, okay? This is not some anti-imperialist rag. No, this is definitely like.
You're not saying Jacobin's an anti-imperialist rag.
No, I'm not saying that, but like for anyone who has that kind of mentality, like. Yeah. No, Jacobin's excellent. I worked for Jacobin. I love Jacobin. We rely on them for their reports all the time. But nonetheless, here's what Foreign Policy had to say about those Patriot missiles. During the 1991 Gulf War, the public was led to believe that the Patriot had near perfect performance, intercepting 45 of 47 Scud missiles. The US Army later revised that estimate down to about 50%. And even then, it expressed higher confidence in only about 1/4 of the cases. But we're not done yet, folks. We're not done. The number devolved even further. A Congressional Research Service employee noted that if the Army had correctly applied its own assessment methodology consistently, the number would be far lower. Reportedly, that number was 1, as in 1 lousy Scud missile downed. That's what we're spending billions of dollars on.
Look, if the Scud's got a weapon of mass destruction on it, then maybe 1's enough, but I don't think anyone's making that case here. Look, I don't think that the Patriot missile system has to have 100% success rate for it to be worthwhile. Yeah. Bulletproof vests don't have 100% success rate, but it should probably be higher than 1 out of 50, probably.
Yeah, no.
Well, and by the way, that was Iraqi missiles back in the 90s. I'm guessing the Russian missiles are more complex, but then again, Russia has proven themselves to be absolute buffoons when it comes to the military recently. So who knows?
True.
Maybe it's worse than the Iraqi stuff.
And they've been at it for almost a year now. They're about to enter their second year, and so some of their military capability has already been utilized, and I'm sure they're buying weapons from other sources at this point. But let's also talk a little bit about the smart bombs. The $2 billion package is also expected to include precision bomb kits that will turn existing unguided munitions or dumb bombs into precision guided smart bombs known as joint direct attack munitions, which, by the way, this is not to bolster their defense capability. This is to bolster their offensive capability.
Yeah.
So
devil's advocate to make it more precise, less likely to. Well, but it's not going to hit civilians. They're not attacking outside of Ukraine generally anyway.
Right.
I guess it's more efficient. In theory.
So the precision bombs could help Ukraine attack fixed Russian defensive lines or other large targets, but they need to be dropped from fighter jets, which remains a significant challenge because of Russia's own air defenses. So
yeah,
I'm concerned for multiple reasons, right? So one of the reasons why I've been supportive in helping Ukraine defend itself is because it was a commitment that the United States made toward Ukraine, security commitments, when Ukraine agreed to give up its nuclear weapons in the 1990s. So if we make that commitment, we make that promise, especially when it comes to giving up nuclear weapons, I think it's important that we maintain that commitment. But I didn't realize that it was just gonna be a blank check to defense contractors, because that's what it appears to be in this case, right? Like, we're spending an additional $2 billion on both offensive and defensive capabilities that are questionable, to say the least.
Well, I think maybe, and let me know if this is a fair modification of what you previously said. I think you did know it would be a blank check. You just thought that maybe it'd be more wisely spent.
No, I never thought it was gonna be a blank check. And I would never think that the government, especially when it comes to foreign policy matters, would be responsible and smart with how they spend the money.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah, look, even if it doesn't bother you that it's so much money, it should bother you that it largely seems like it's gonna be ineffective. Because especially if you do approve of this funding, if you've gone into this and you're in month 9 of, look, I may not like it, but I also think that we need to do what we can to protect Ukraine. We need to not allow a precedent to be set that countries can invade and occupy other countries. Then spending billions of dollars for stuff that's probably not gonna help them, isn't that kind of the worst thing we could do? If this is not actually gonna protect people, just send them medical aid, spend the money on food, spend it on vehicles, spend it on the things that we know will help. Spending the money on stuff that isn't actually going to protect them is horrific if you think saving civilian life is the most important thing that we can do right now.
It's almost as if that's not really what the objective here is.
Well, I did run an analysis on the Patriot missile system, and while you are right that only about 1 out of 50 was successful in knocking out a Scud, 50 out of 50 were successful in being paid for.
That's right.
It's an amazingly high rate of them getting the money for it.
They might be ineffective, but also Raytheon, am I right? Now, going back to the Gulf War, by the way, so in the 1991 Gulf War, the Patriot missile system was like such a failure, right? Not only did it fail 49 out of 50 times, it also failed in that it ended up falling on an army barracks that contained army reservists, and 12 of them were killed as a result. So not only could this be ineffective, it could be counterproductive as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a missile. Yeah.
So remember, guys, that's our money that's going into the pockets of defense contractors. And if you genuinely think it doesn't matter, we should just have this unlimited resources mentality when it comes to protecting Ukraine, you gotta at least acknowledge this is crazy. And also, you should acknowledge that this is not actually about protecting Ukraine. This is because the United States sees Russia as an enemy, which, that's fine. I think Putin is a terrible person, and you want to see Putin as an enemy, that's totally fine with me.
Well, they did invade.
And they did invade,
I mean, that's not up for debate.
But there's all sorts of conflicts happening all over the country where if we are involved, we're on the wrong side, if you ask me.
Yeah, so isn't it novel to be on the right side? Really fast devil's advocate, it is possible that in the last 25 years, they have made significant enough improvements to the Patriot that it might be more effective as a defensive weapon. You could say that particularly in this conflict, since Russia keeps doing long-range missile bombardments of civilian centers in Ukraine, specifically trying to take out their energy infrastructure, this could end up being a low-cost way of maintaining infrastructure that'd be far more expensive to rebuild. And if we're gonna spend money, I feel a little bit more comfortable giving purely defensive weapons than things that theoretically could be used inside of Russia and could expand or prolong the conflict. Again, I don't think that this is what we should be spending our money on. I think there are far better things you could do, but that would be the devil's advocate's case, I think.
And I would also feel maybe a little better about the blank check situation if I felt that the Biden administration was really putting pressure on both parties to re-engage in the peace negotiations that have now completely stopped. Those negotiations, I know they failed early on, But they failed early on with Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the president of Ukraine, wanting to engage in them. And now they've completely abandoned that, because why would you want to engage in peace negotiations when you know the United States has that blank check mentality when it comes to military aid? You get what I'm saying?
You're saying from the Ukrainians' point of view?
Yeah,
theoretically to not be involved in the war anymore.
Well, true, but they don't want to concede to anything. Do you get what I'm saying?
You're saying like giving up significant amounts of territory or something?
Exactly, right. So
sure.
So now it's like, oh, well, we got unlimited resources coming from the United States. Why would we engage in peace negotiations? Let's keep this going.
Yeah, it's complex.
It is complex. So anyway, that's not to say that I want to stop supporting them, but it just seems like because there are defense contractors making money off of this, it's now turning into an incredibly costly situation that has no end in sight. And we should be applying some pressure to have both parties sit down and talk about some end to this.
Yeah, you can push for the diplomacy, and even in the absence of that, simply saying I want to support them doesn't mean spend the money on literally anything.
Right, exactly.
It should be wisely spent.
I totally agree with that.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.